So if you can move in, do any type of movement, you should probably be able to figure out a way to apply that movement to other different ways. Depending on the complexity, it can be challenging, but anything that you do in the sagittal plane, you should be able to do in the frontal plane and then in the transverse plane. Why is that even important? Well, if you've decided that a pattern or a movement or an exercise is important, there's a way to minimize overload. Overload is not a bad word, but the repetitive nature of too much of a good thing. So you can still maintain some of that of the value of that pattern, but then when you move in other planes, you're clearly addressing different joint positions, different parts of joint centration if it remains, different length tensions of different tissues, and all of those things can be good. And as you apply this variety to how you're moving, I do think there's an autonomic value to that. I think that there's something there that when you can and do move in three planes often at the right time with the proper protocols, parameters, etc., I do think that there is a good reason to think that you will have some components of your recovery to be enhanced. So let's start. Let's talk about back squat, and you're gonna find whatever width that you want, whatever toe out you want, and you're burying your squats and you're strong. You're getting below parallel. You're upright. There's nothing to poke at here. You're looking good when you squat. You can put your legs out really wide and really close. You'll probably change depth, and there's no way you're going to be able to squat as much. You're not centrated anymore in the hips or knees and feet. But is there a way to kind of lateralize, if you will, your back squat into the frontal plane? Yeah, you can do a side squat. Now, you might only be focusing on one side, one leg at a time from strength, but you're getting some other things on the other side in terms of some length on the adductors, gracilis, etc. You might be looking at some length even at the lateral ankle. Again, this is how I think, but taking a back squat and turning it into a side squat can actually be an opportunity to create some tissue changes in the lateral ankle, post-ankle sprain. How do you do that with the transverse plane? Well, if you're here to do your squat, you're here and you're only going here to do your side squat, you'll do a rotational step to wherever you see fit and then drop in this way. Now, in the frontal plane and then transverse plane, you're going one leg at a time, so that's going to cost you double reps. But I think you can still have a very significant strengthening effect without getting into something that doesn't do what you think it does. Getting your hands all the way out here and changing the depth and load of your squat can still have a lot of value for connective tissue. If you hold the tension to get in and get out, probably is nothing more than a warm-up or strengthening for somebody who's super deconditioned or elderly. I think what you're going to find on T equals R3 when we talk about these triplanar movements, and I don't remember the language that I used in terms of creating secondary or even tertiary changes in the plane of movement. So for instance, split squat. So you can suggest that the split squat's primarily a sagittal movement. But what if I want to create sagittal and then a secondary plane of sagittal? I'll get even longer or shorter, and I'm still in the sagittal plane. Well, what if I wanted to also add a third level of plane, tertiary plane of transverse? Well, I'm going to ask you, is it front or back? What do you mean? You can pick whatever you want. The infinite nature makes this so much fun. And you do have an opportunity to explore positions that might actually happen in your training. Now, whether these positions are closed loop, that's just a place to start. But if you've never been in those positions before, you have no introduction into the alphabet to do your agility and evasive maneuvers when you're in a team sport, etc., or even things like tennis. That being said, how would I create a tertiary plane? My primary plane is sagittal for the split squat. My secondary plane is also sagittal. I'm getting wider. My tertiary plane front side is rotational internal. And then I do my split squats this way. Clearly, that's going to change how much force I can deliver as I have this super wide stance and I'm no longer ideally centrated. So what am I working on? I'm working on, maybe that would be a good move for somebody that had an old school posterior approach to their hip replacement. The first thing that comes to mind. This is infinite, and it's there's ways to use the language. You got to name the exercise and then name primary, secondary, tertiary. I guess there's even quaternary. You can call it whatever you want, but you also just have to describe where those changes in planes are happening. Because if we do the split squat and you do all sorts of reaches, then those would be described in a similar way.